Nagoanzakwe and Ishnaka, Wabjashi and Doram, Chimnising and Donjaba, Anishinaabe, Barawarami, Kwe and Dao. It's Tori Cress, by the way, like watercress. So I came here from my home territory of Chimnising, as I just said in my language, but I work for an organization called Keepers of the Water. They're an Indigenous-led environmental organization based out of Treaty 8 territory at the beginning life cycle of the plastics in the tar sands. The tar sands, which you can view from space because that industrial project is one of the largest ones on the planet that it is viewable from space. And within that, in the heart of the tar sands, is the Dene, Cree, and Métis peoples. And that's who we work with. Our organization is comprised of Dene, Cree, Métis, First Nation, Inuit, concerned citizens, and environmentalists. And I'm really excited to say, we are a small organization, and we do have a scientist on our staff. Our scientist is Paul Belanger. And what he's done is he's initiated a water monitoring program in Treaty 8 territory from the beginning of the Athabasca all the way past the tar sands, because we've come to learn that we cannot count on Western science to protect our bodies from industrial pollution, from the tar sands, tailings ponds that are leaching into the waterways, the imperial oil spill that happened. It's Western science that has allowed that to happen to our lands, to our waters, and to our bodies. And as communities from Treaty 8 are telling folks, we're dying from the rarest forms of cancer because of the pollution that comes from the beginning of the life cycle of plastics. And the tar sands is feeding that. It's feeding the plastic pollution. And now we have community members that can no longer even take a cup of water and scoop it out of the Athabasca and drink it because it's so toxic and so polluted. I spent time in Fort McKay and Fort Chip in the summer, last summer during the wildfires, and got to witness for myself what's happening to the water. And that's who we speak for as Indigenous people leading this organization, this water protecting organization. We're trying to raise the voice of the water and those community members that are not being listened to, because we're the first scientists of our territories. And for generations and generations, Indigenous people in Treaty 8 have been telling folks what's happening to the land, what's happening to the fish, the cancers in the fish, the cancers on the organs of the moose they're harvesting. Indigenous people still live off their lands. They still harvest. They still carry that culture and tradition and the connection to the land. And the more we tell people what's happening in our territories, the less people listen. But I'm in a room now of folks that are ready, willing, and listen, and to center Indigenous science and work with us. That's why I'm so grateful we have someone like Paul, who's prepared to take Western science and help braid it with Indigenous science. He's following our lead on the water monitoring program, and that's the kind of folks, that I see in this room here. And we want to work with folks like yourselves because we're trying to put an end to fossil fuels. It's killing us. It's killing us. Like from one end of the country, it's killing us. And what's happening in Treaty 8 is the fragmentation of the boreal forest. And the more we tell people everything is connected, the less people seem to be listening across Canada. And that's where you folks come in. You folks take these messages back to your communities, back to those tables, because we've decided we're not going to be on your negotiating tables anymore, we're at them. If we have to push our way like we have today, we're coming to the negotiating tables, because while Canadians and the rest of the world is discussing the exploitation of natural resources, those natural resources are our relatives. Those trees are our relatives. That oil in the ground keeps the delta's water intact. We tell people this, and we're really excited that Western science is starting to catch up with tens and tens of thousands of years of Indigenous knowledge that's been passed on from generation to generation. Very old knowledge. There's stories that come out of Anishinaabe communities that talk about when the sturgeon were still walking. That's how ancient our knowledge is. And we want to share that. We've been trying to share that since contact, to show other people how to live in balance with this land, because it's about a relationship. We have relationship to the land. We have relationship to the rock. Everything we have right now as we stand here, even with these modern tools and technology, are all elements of the earth. Everything that we have right now before us came from the earth. Even if it was manufactured into something we no longer recognize, the earth provides us with everything, everything. And we haven't been good to her. We haven't treated her well. And we're doing the best we can to try and encourage folks like yourselves to come to our communities and listen to our stories. You can't just fly into remote communities and spend a day or two interviewing people. You need to be prepared to get into our communities and spend time there and listen to these storytellers. We have gifted knowledge carriers in our communities, storytellers that are connected with our ancient history. And we encourage you to spend time in our communities. Don't just read about it in the newspaper. Get to Fort Chip and go talk to community members. Go to Fort Mackay. See for yourself what's happening to the forest. The boreal forest is a living entity that's supposed to stretch across the top of this entire country, and it's being fragmented. And as long as folks see what's happening in Alberta, it's created a blueprint for what can happen in Northern Ontario when folks talk about a just transition and you're looking at the critical minerals to extract and have this just transition. It's still mining. And until we start changing our ideas of what mining looks like, until folks start listening to what Indigenous people are saying around the world on how to have a good relationship with the land, we're just going to repeat what's already going on. It's just going to be another exploitation. So when we do this work for a just transition, it's really important to center Indigenous knowledge in that because of that relationship that we carry with our lands and our territories. So I'm gonna wrap it up and say chi miigwech. If you are ever interested in learning about our science and our community water monitoring program, I encourage you to reach out to our science advisor, Paul Belanger, and he can be reached at science@keepersofthewater.ca. Chi miigwech, everybody.